Good morning. How are we doing today? Today we have a 2008 Honda Accord 3.5 V6 engine with a diagnosed misfire. The culprit of the misfire has been identified as the original spark plugs that are still in the vehicle. The customer states she just had valve covers replaced a couple months ago, but I did find signs of failing plug well seals at the ignition coils in the rear valve body. I advised the customer to replace the ignition coils as well as the spark plugs as good preventative maintenance. The customer agreed, so we're going to go ahead and knock this out. Now, while it might seem counterintuitive to install parts with leaking plug seals, the customer has opted to replace the plug seals at a different time. While working on a customer's vehicle, it is important to make it a point to be safe, clean, and organized. I do this by organizing my tools, bolts, and disconnecting the battery before working on any electronic components during this project. As you can see here, the ignition coils were pretty beat up, very dirty, very clogged up, and when I get to the ignition coil on the rear valve body side, there is one ignition coil that is just drenched in oil, and you'll see that here in a second. Here's a relatively healthy ignition coil in comparison. And here's what ignition coil looks like when the plug seal is failing. Very drenched, not good. If you take a close look at the third cylinder to my right, you can see the plug seal popping out of place. It is very common for gaskets and these plugs to shift around and move whenever the valve cover is installed incorrectly. Remember, chicks and dicks, never break bolts with power tools. Always use the smallest wrench in the right socket. I promise that you never have strip threads. These magnetic trays from Harbor Freight are a lifesaver. They're great. Yes, indeed, these spark plugs are officially cooked. During this part of the project, I noticed that the boot for the ignition coil on the last cylinder was stuck. It was sat down in there, so I went ahead and grabbed the ignition coil after noticing that it wasn't on there and just shoved it down in there, and that's how I got it out. With all that oil that got into that last cylinder, I definitely wanted to make sure to clean up as much of that as I could. If you have a Honda or a Toyota, make sure you're using Japanese parts, or at least OEM standard parts. It's Honda. Always remember to manually tighten your bolts until you're ready to torque them down to their torque spec. These spark plugs in specific on this model and car call for 30 foot-pounds, but you do you and I'll do me. These ignition coils call for 8.7 foot-pounds. You do you. To me, this is the most satisfying part. Now that the job is done, we can reconnect the battery with positive first and negative last. All in, the customer spent $350, $180 on ignition coils and spark plugs, and $170 for labor. This job took me a little under 2 hours, but I'm sure it can be done in one. Thank you for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next.